So one of the things we have to deal with is understanding ourselves. And this isn't understanding ourselves on a psychological level. It's understanding ourselves on an existential level. In other words, what is our essential nature? There are certain assumptions that we make. One of these assumptions is that we are an entity that experiences things. Perhaps you've never thought of that before. You've never thought of yourself in that way before. But you'd probably agree, yes, I'm somebody who experiences things. Well, according to Patanjali, this is a symptom of ignorance, of very deep misunderstanding. Sutra 6 said the affliction of separate selfhood is when experience is mistakenly attributed to an experiencer. So it's an affliction, it's a poison. And Sutra 9 told us that this particular affliction has its own momentum, even in the wise. And Sutra 11 told us that this affliction can be bypassed by a meditative focus. This is a forensic analysis of the situation. We need to look with an unbiased mind at the situation. The next few sutras describe the situation. Now, there's a traditional way of understanding this, but I intend to look a little bit more deeply than that. Sutra 12 says, the afflictions feed our underlying drives through circumstance and personal psychology, creating our experience. This experience is traditionally described as a future birth. The traditional understanding is that we're born again and again in accordance with our behaviour in past lives. Now there's a bit of scope here for looking at this on a deeper level, because Patanjali never says these things in quite a straightforward way. He says that our future birth is dependent on the seen and the unseen. Now the seen seems to me to be just this, our circumstances, and the unseen is our psychological response to these circumstances. So there's a kind of feedback loop here which generates our experience. And I mention here our underlying drives. The experience is like a reservoir, and a reservoir's got its own pressure which leaks out in a certain way. There must be an escape for all this pressure that's building up. So the afflictions, the poisons, feed this reservoir which leaks out and expresses itself in certain ways. And how it expresses itself is in our immediate experience. You could call it a birth if you like, but it's happening from moment to moment. Every moment is a new birth. Our birth isn't something that happened so many years ago. Each moment is birthed from past circumstances in accordance with external conditions and our inner psychology. As long as this continues, the consequences are experiences of a certain quality and duration. Traditionally, this is taken to mean that you're born within a particular caste and you have a certain lifespan. But spiritually, that's of no interest to us. What we're examining is the immediate moment and how we respond to the immediate moment. We can either simply react to it, or we can use it as an opportunity to come back to samadhi. So these experiences, these can be delightful or distressing, depending on the graciousness or otherwise of our behaviour. Traditionally, this is understood as meritorious or demeritorious behaviour. It's as if you've got a little book, or a little book's being kept on you, of all your good deeds and all your bad deeds, and that will determine your future life. But again, spiritually we need to get rid of that altogether. So I've used the word graciousness. Graciousness pertains to grace. It's a rather old-fashioned term. Grace seems to have gone out of fashion. It's the opposite of being mean-spirited. It's the opposite of being centered on me. Mean-spirited. We seem to be living in a time where we're like little kids that want their share of the pie, and they're fully entitled to throw any kind of tantrum in order to get it. Can such a person ever truly be satisfied? And the whole mentality by which you think you're garnering merits or otherwise belongs to that mentality. Therefore, the astute individual does not look for comfort in the struggles inherent in physical existence, but faces up to the uncomfortable challenge of personal transformation. The astute individual is the spiritual practitioner. The priority is no longer this reveling in the comfort zone, which has got nothing gracious about it. It goes back to the tapas of Sutra 1 in this book. We're not trying to cultivate discomfort. We're just no longer a slave to comfort. This is the challenge of personal transformation. At the moment I've put myself on a diet. I probably am a little bit overweight, but that's not the point. I've noticed I seek comfort in certain kinds of food. Chocolate biscuits and the like. So I've cut them out. I notice when I have the craving for one, it's because I'm looking for this comfort. So I'm not being masochistic by cutting out chocolate biscuits. I'm simply not following the automatic impulse towards comfort. Being comforted. And even within a few days I seem to have lost a bit of weight. So there's that transformation going on. And if you're obese, then this is probably what it is. You're caught up in comfort eating. You're trapped by your comfort zone. And it's not a healthy place to be. And this is what most lifestyles are about, especially amongst the affluent. More and more things are needed for your comfort. Not just for your comfort, but for your family's comfort. You have to have a nice house. You have to have the very best for your kids. You'll need at least one car. The thing is, it's a struggle. All this is a struggle. Families will make great sacrifices in order to live in the required level of comfort. Perhaps both parents are out at work. They never see the kids, and yet they're doing it for the kids. So this struggle for comfort is a bit of a disaster, really. It's the basis of our suffering. We are setting up the conditions for our future suffering. And Sutra 16 tells us that this future suffering can be discarded. But I'll look into that in the next video.